USAA knows dynamic duos can save the day, like superheroes and sidekicks or auto and home insurance. With USAA, you can bundle your auto and home and save up to 10%. Learn more and get a quote at usaa.com/bundle. Restrictions apply.
Don't go anywhere. We're going to have a quick word from one of our sponsors, Apax Lab. Elevate your coffee experience with Apax Lab mineral concentrates. Apax Lab's precision-engineered formulas, including tonic, jam, and lilac, are designed to enhance the coffee's natural flavors. Not going to change it, it's just going to enhance it. It's going to bring out the vibrant acidity, the rich sweetness, or if you use lilac, it might bring out those delicate floral notes that you've been looking for. Trusted by world-class cafes and even barista champions, Apax Lab helps you unlock your coffee's full potential. Discover more at apaxlab.com. Wait, where was that again, Sonam?
The internet.
Oh, okay. Thought he was going to say the website. Thanks.
Today's episode is brought to you by our amazing sponsors at Eco Barista. The reason I sound like this is because they got massages at our stand at Mice, and so I'm getting a massage while recording this message for you. They're the best sponsor of the pod that we could have had. They have the best eco products. This probably sounds really pornographic, but it's not. I'm just getting a massage. They have the best eco-friendly coffee products. They got coffee bags that you can design yourself. They got cups. They got iced coffee cups. They got everything you need. So make sure to support them because they support us. Head to ecobarista.com.au and get 15% off your first purchase when you sign up. Oh, mama, that's good.
Okay, welcome everyone to our coffee break following up the amazing Dan from Paperboy Cafe. Just joined us for a last recording. It was great.
It was great. He's such an amazing dude. I don't know how much time you've spent with him, but man, what a wealth of knowledge.
Yeah.
So articulate, so friendly, and also just like gives his knowledge away so people can reap the benefits of his great choices and they can avoid the not so great choices.
Yeah. That's super important. I've only met Dan in kind of passing, never really got the opportunity to sit down and pull through his brains. But as you said, incredible experience, so generous with his knowledge and sharing that. And so for those of you who haven't kind of heard of Dan before, he's a Melbourne-based cafe operator of multiple venues, has all of this
and
history.
a roastery.
And a roastery now as well. And so, yeah, it was a really cool opportunity to hear about his journey and his particular experience with this new place, which I thought was really pretty interesting because it was quite a shift and a very deliberate shift from the business model and kind of philosophy he'd taken before.
Yeah, giant shift. He's had a bunch of cafes, I think 5 or 6 at total, called Nigel, right? There were lots of them. They were in high traffic areas. Lots of people going through lots of takeaway coffee.
Yep.
And now he's sold a few of those, kept the ones that are working, got rid of the ones that weren't working. And now he's just gone like completely different. For a different part for life and part for business, right? But opening a new cafe is hard, and he's kind of started from scratch with this one.
Yeah.
What did you kind of take away listening from him as like the biggest challenges and things that he did well?
Yeah, well, it was interesting because he kind of was starting this from scratch, but also he was kind of converting an existing non-functional cafe space before, which is a whole nother challenge, right? Like if you're thinking about starting up a cafe, you've either got like a blank slate environment, you've got a venue that has infrastructure already there, or you've actually got a whole operating business. And he kind of had a whole operating business, but a very unique experience. So I thought for me, the biggest takeaways were that he'd been very deliberate from his learnings and quite personal about why he was doing this next kind of business, this next cafe. And it was really based on this is where his community is. He lives very close. So he knows the customers and the people who are going to be frequenting it really well and what they would want. And he's really built something to like meet that exact audience. And I thought that was like a really cool kind of cool perspective to keep in mind.
Well, it was kind of interesting because he, if we talk about location, which I think is a huge thing that people need to think about when starting a cafe and doing that, you looked at the Nigel that he got rid of through Facebook Marketplace.
Yep.
Also, there's a lesson for anyone. Selling your business through Facebook Marketplace. He kind of just felt like he kind of ignored his own warning signals on that one when he got it right. He was like, it's a cafe at a train station. This is going to be great. He was like, oh, we're coming out of COVID, but surely things will get back. Oh, it's privately owned. It's not actually a managed property. Oh, whatever. I'm sure we'll work it out. Oh, it's a bit more than what I want to pay, but sure, we'll have hundreds of people walking through. And he didn't crunch the numbers enough to make it viable. And he ignored like those warning signs. Interestingly, he was like, whoever I sell it to, if you're going to be owner and operate, like running the shop, you could make money here, but I can't do it as a chain.
Yeah.
Coming into Paperboy, he's been like, he knows the location. He knows it's out in the suburbs. So it's not the high foot traffic of a city location where you're getting, and then because of that, he's changed the whole operating system of like great coffee, but also we need to offer some food and some things to sit in with, because it's not just walk in, grab a coffee, grab a muffin and get out the door. It's going to be families. It's going to be people doing school drop-offs and pickups and that kind of thing that are going to want to come in, sit down, and he wants to be there a bit more, make it a bit more personal, you know?
Yeah.
It's about that relationships that are kind of getting started. So I thought he's been really particular with how he's told that story, and also making it really human. People love a human story, right? Paperboy, his first job was a paperboy growing up in Surrey Hills. The first job, it was across the road from where this location
Like in the
is.
middle of traffic, he was selling papers either way.
So you can think that like when you're going in and you're speaking to someone and they're like, no, this is my business. This is where I grew up. Where you're raising your family, that's where I grew up as a child, and now I'm raising my family here. There's instantly a connection. His kids are going to be running around in the shop. You know, there's all these little things that's the kind of thing that makes me want to come back and like growing that kind of community and friendship.
I think they can be super sticky and kind of compelling, right? It is that we know yes, you can tick the box for convenience, and yes, good quality coffee and good quality product is definitely important. But, you know, people can go to lots of places for that. And so what's the experience they're kind of coming in for that's going to keep them coming back?
So where do you stand on this side? I thought he was doing food in a cafe is challenging, right? When you look in, it's like, do you have a full head chef? Are you paying someone else that then has different opinions to you and wants to do this? Dan brought in, I think, a consultant and kind of started to build out a menu. And his whole brief was like, I want to make delicious stuff, but I want it to be so simple to make and pre-prepared that anyone in the shop can kind of put it together. Sure, there are going to be people that are maybe better at doing it, but he wanted every staff member to be able to put together a dish if needed. So he had like his salmon tartine, he had the sardine. So making really yummy stuff that is easy to put together rather than needing some pro chefs that if they walk out or aren't there, you can't produce the quality. He was like, I'd rather something that's 80%, I don't know what percentage he said, but saying like 80% all of the time rather than 90% one day and 20% another.
Yeah.
Where did you stand on these kind of approaches of tackling something like a kitchen in a cafe space?
Honestly, I wanted to hear more about that. I know we're kind of a coffee podcast, but I was like, well, how are you doing this food thing?
Yeah.
Because like especially obviously food in cafes globally is like really different in every kind of culture, right? And we kind of talked about this on our initial podcast, was that, you know, you rock up to a specialty coffee cafe in North America, and often the food offering will be baked goods and some pastries, like quick service stuff, which is great. But if you go somewhere with a full kitchen, it's a restaurant, right? Yeah. It's a breakfast restaurant. And in Australia, we've got kind of a unique, you know, merging or very much more common place where there's really great quality made to order food, and it's part of the business model. It keeps everything operating. And I think like Dan's approach sounds like a great approach. You know, if everyone can make everything, he's got heaps of flexibility. He can manage staffing. The risk is kind of a little bit more manageable versus having like one head chef that if they leave, what happens? So yeah, I'm really fascinated with that model that he's kind of taken. I think it's a really clever system if you can make it work.
I think it's always great when when you have a clear idea before you start of what you want to achieve. That's when like great visions kind of come out.
Yeah.
I had a friend of mine who now runs a super popular cafe here. You might know him, Anthony, who does Archie's. Had Archie's.
Yep.
I was helping out when he first started. He started a little place called Bluebird Espresso.
Mm-hmm.
And I helped him out baristering when he first opened the doors there. But this dude like came out, he was like, I don't have a huge amount of money to pump into it. I'm going to get a spot. And his whole kitchen, and he offered like a good sized menu at the place. His whole kitchen was on the cafe countertop, and it was a big sandwich press, a grill, and an induction cooktop with a big pot on it for poached eggs.
Yep.
And that was it. And everything else was pre-prepped, and it had to use those things. So the press was used for heating up chorizo, fried eggs.
Yep. Everything.
Then he'd do tartines like mushroom melts and whatever, that it was under the grill, mushrooms on the toast, cheese on top, under the grill, and then just poached water boiling where he just dropped poached eggs in.
Yep.
And that place, within like a few months of him starting it, was like every weekend like packed. And he obviously built up enough money to go and do Archie's and that, but a clear vision and idea, and not being shrouded by needing to spend crazy amounts of money, just following what you wanted to do leads to success. Same with my friend Stefanino Panino. Just started out in a place that was going to get bulldozed as a little pop-up, put in a meat slicer, and that was it. Bread, great deli meats, and people loved it.
I think, the big takeaways from that are like thinking creatively about how you can come up with a solution that will really give people what they want, but in a creative way. As you said, maybe you don't need a full, commercial kitchen fit out. And then also I think calling in some experts to help you, and Dan kind of highlighted that, is that there's people who are experts in the kitchen and in obviously the mechanics of that, the pricing of it, the product creation, like bringing those experts in, and you're going to avoid a whole heap of pitfalls, especially if it's not your area of expertise, right? A lot of people come into cafe ownership through being professional coffee people, like being baristas and getting more and more experience. And then suddenly you're in a world where you're doing business management, people management, kitchen management, product and coffee. So really supplementing where you need to strengthen that out, I think is a great takeaway.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to get into him a bit more, but I found his whole idea about roasting was interesting, and like he was kind of hinting at this like takeaway of like, if you're trying to get into roasting because you have cafes and you think it'll save you money on your coffee ordering bill, maybe think again about that decision. What did you take away from that?
Yeah, I thought that was like, again, another area I wanted to dig into more with him. Maybe we'll have to have another round. But
he did say at the end, he's like, call me whenever you need me. I'll be in.
But yeah, I think it's a great idea. From the outside, if you're a business operator, like a cafe operator that has 2 or 3 busy venues, starting to roast can look like a really attractive raw numbers kind of thing, with like the cost of green coffee to the cost of roasted coffee. But I think what Dan was really pointing out is that there's all of these other, maybe not hidden, but just kind of unexpected or added on costs that really, if the only reason you're doing it is to try and save money, really make sure you've done your homework and kind of got all of those numbers together, because from the labor cost to the risk management of like quality control through to like obviously the equipment and everything else and the skill building, all of that kind of stuff costs money and time. And, at the end of it, does it add value outside of just the coffee that you could have sourced elsewhere and kept your business focus?
Yeah.
Or does it kind of allow you to do other things? And I know for Dan, he was talking about how much it had invigorated him and reinvigorated him in the coffee discussion. So that was obviously really cool.
Yeah, and something that Dan spoke about the previous time he was on the podcast that I think applies here and I think is a really valuable lesson is we were talking about kind of what you're talking about with the cost of equipment. Like a lot of roasteries will pay for cafes to have the equipment there, the coffee machines, the grinders, the this and that. And it's a hard space to play in that wholesale market because everyone's trying to undercut everyone. And Dan has worked in sales for years, worked in sales at St. Ali. And he's like, the biggest thing that I have to offer is me. When you work with me, I'm a partner for your cafe. I want your cafe to succeed. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be talking to you. I'm going to be making sure that everything runs smoothly for you. And his biggest thing there was like not the price cutting or the this, but like I'm going to be the partner in your cafe to make sure that you succeed doing this as well. And I thought that was a pretty nice thing in, you know, the world that we live in coffee as well.
Yeah. I mean, kind of depends again on what's driving you with any of these changes, but it's kind of like what he did for the kitchen and kind of getting that support is calling in people who can bolster your business with real expertise. It might cost like a little bit more to use them or to bring those skills in, but it's probably going to save you a whole heap of mistakes and problems.
You think about how much money you'd lose if you go down the wrong path of like not making the right coffee, it not being the right quality, like all those things, machines breaking down and not being able to get it, whatever happens, you know.
Yeah.
A lot of money can be lost very quickly in those, you know. Sorry, Liam.
So would the key to that be the fact that he has such a vision of what it should be fundamentally? Like, you know how you're talking about like this, it's the story. He already has such clarity on kind of the offering that he wants to bring and more so the community he wants to connect to. And so getting that help, because as you're saying, you're like, you know, you need to bring people in. And that to me comes with a double-edged sword. It's like, do you bring specialists in because they have a wealth of knowledge that can add the details you don't know? You know, when I'm cooking, I end up adding a million ingredients, right? Like I'm like, oh, this pairs with this. And I like, it turns into this convoluted thing. I can never replicate anything, right? And then there's also the other side where it's like, no. A good chef can like work with 3 ingredients and make, you know, and that's what it looks like for Dan. It's like there's simplicity and design in the systems behind everything that it can work on a fundamental level where it's like by design, by taste, by choice. And there's two sides
There's
there.
lots of learning that he's taken over the years that kind of get put into the making of this cafe and roastery and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I think your point though is like intentionality of, okay, we're aiming for something. We're aiming for an outcome that's like, you know, he really highlighted that's great for customers, but is also deliverable by his systems and by his people. And then at the same time, I think he's the same conversation for him roasting is that there was a real kind of reason for it. And I think aiming for how you can pull the experience together to do that really efficiently is kind of key, because a lot of people can cook and do great food or make a great coffee business, but, you know, the margins can be quite slim. And so doing it in a really efficient way that reduces your risk as an operator, I think is key. And probably makes it way more enjoyable for the staff and the baristas who are working with him.
Yeah, and I think it's really valuable to like the way that he's approached this cafe has definitely changed in a post-COVID world, and him learning a lot about like what has changed, what has returned. Staffing now is very hard. So he's approaching it with like, how are all of my systems repeatable by as many staff as possible? We just had a giant race car going past there that just ripping our ears off. How is it repeatable? Because coming by staff is so much harder, and keeping them on, it's a challenge in the industry right now.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, you know, some of the big takeaways for me with kind of where he was going with the conversation overall were good systems, thinking about the numbers, like doing the due diligence, kind of checking obviously on the sites that didn't work, but then really tailoring like your whole business model around what your goals are and what context you're delivering it into. His inner city busy cafes are a whole different market to the outer suburban cafes.
I think that's a great point for anyone starting. From so many people that I've spoken to, I find it crazy how many people haven't actually crunched the numbers on like where all the costs are going to be, because they add up real quick.
Yeah.
When you rent, electricity, gas, like insurance.
Yeah.
It all really adds up. So you really need to, and that's where you, even though that side sounds boring, that's what pushes you to be creative, to be like, great, well, how can I, you know, tackle all of these numbers and make it profitable.
And one of your previous episodes with Nathan Tolman, one of Melbourne's kind of best cafe operators and most innovative kind of cafe operators, he was just dropping knowledge bombs left and right about how to approach or how he approaches calculating whether this is a good opportunity. So that's a really useful listen.
Absolutely. Great, Dan. What a legend.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dan. I thought now, why not jump into a little coffee news?
Oh, the latest news.
The latest news in coffees and share our thoughts.
Some ideas.
Was Liam waiting for me to approve pressing the button?
Wow.
Liam's sitting there holding his finger above the button, and I thought he was just giving it like anticipation.
No, okay. So it's been a couple. I feel like it's been a long time since I've actually utilized these triggers for a while.
That button.
Yeah, usually Sonam just goes, "I've got a hot take," and he like jumps in, or we don't do them, or
oh no, I'm here for you. I've got the professionalism to go to my producer to get those sounds. And also, now that I got Ben in, Ben, you need to pitch a segment or a sound or something. It could be for anything, just a sound that comes in.
Okay. Signature sound.
Yeah. Maybe we'll become accustomed to like a certain trait of yours. Okay. And like when you say something, we're like, that's so Ben.
Yeah. That's a flavor profile breakdown.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. Because that's what he's always doing, goodness. Breaking down flavor profiles.
Just breaking it down.
All right.
Let's break down the news.
Let's break down some news. This one isn't much news as much as it is just a launch that I think is interesting. Liquid decaf. Liquid decaf coffee concentrate. That's the strength of espresso that you can, rather than pulling shots of decaf, you can just pour it in a cup, add your milk, whatever it is, chuck it into your iced coffee, and you got a decaf coffee going on. I think super interesting. One challenge that I've seen a lot of cafes face, and I don't know if this is their market, but having a decaf grinder, when you look at the percentage of coffees sold. I know when I worked at my cafe, we had a decaf grinder and it was maybe 6 decafs out of 1,000 coffees in a day, something like that.
Yep.
You start going, how am I justifying having this grinder? And I want to offer it and I want to offer a good product.
Yep.
But if you can offer something that is consistent, not the same decaf beans sitting out that no one orders, so they go old, and you can offer a consistent product in a cup for decaf drinkers. I sometimes wonder, is that a way to go? And secondly, coffee concentrates. Maybe, have you experimented at all with them? Let's touch on the decaf first, then we'll talk coffee concentrates.
Look, the decaf thing, I agree with you. You want a good quality product for people. You want it controlled and repeatable. I think that's important, and often that is unfortunately a problem with decaf service. It doesn't have the turnover. It doesn't have the consistency of service to allow people to dial in the best of the product. I do worry a little bit that a concentrate is kind of a dumbing down of what we could get out of the coffee. And so there's a balance here, I think. If you just know that you're not going to pay attention to it and you are really having problems getting a halfway decent decaf out, then maybe this is like a good solution for that, or a quick service thing.
But on the other side of that coin, I feel like decaf consumption is going to go up and is going up, and it will continue to go up. B, I think it's our job as the coffee industry to show good options of what's out there, because a lot of the time people might want to order decaf, but it tastes like crap, so they don't. You're seeing a lot of roasteries and a lot of producers put a lot more effort into high quality decaf that tastes really good.
There's some incredible stuff out there. I tasted some really amazing samples of decaf that still showcase a lot of the origin characteristics and are unique and different to each other. And I think, as you said, there's definitely a trend where people are moving more and more towards, obviously health conscious, caffeine conscious. And I think from a specialty coffee point of view, I go, we don't want to dumb down kind of the sensory attributes or the differentiation between the coffees. So look, if I haven't tasted the coffee concentrate, so if it works and it can deliver some of that, then maybe it's a really good solution.
Yep.
And I like that people are innovating in that space.
Yep. And I think, one thing I was going to say, I think it was the American Brewers Cup champion used the decaf coffee in his routine. So we're starting to see it move into the world of competition. I know Jamie used one part of his was decaf when he competed, Jamie Thompson. So I think that's interesting. The coffee, the espresso concentrate, or not espresso concentrate, I'm interested in the idea of pre-batching espresso. And I've been seeing different experiments of like the time frames in which it can last, whether that's through iced coffees or even milk-based coffees. We're seeing people pull shots of espresso pre-service, have it in a bottle, and then just able to top up from a bottle rather than pulling a fresh shot every single time. Yeah. Hey, and curiosity.
Do you like it?
Yeah. Well, from the research of like what I was seeing some people look at, they were saying there's like 24-hour window of like having it needs to be sealed, there are all these boundaries that you need to work by. But it is something, maybe we can do it on the pod and actually test it out. Next pod I can chuck some in there.
Blind taste.
Do a blind taste test of an iced coffee and a milky. Obviously I don't think for a black context you're ever going to get it, but when you're making something like a 250 ml latte or something, I'm like maybe there's,
Hey, worthwhile checking out. I think one of the interesting things with coffee extraction and chilling, and one of the challenges everyone's being tried to tackle is that there's the volatile aromatics in your coffee. So when you hit your coffee with hot water, often to extract, that some of the aroma compounds start to evaporate out of the coffee, and that's what we actually smell as kind of as the aroma of the coffee. And once you chill that or leave it too long, there's less and less of those aromatics being kind of released. And in fact, 80% of what we experience as flavor is actually aroma. The taste and what's in the cup is kind of supplementary in terms of those key characteristics to the complexity of the aroma compounds that layer on. So again,
but do you think that applies to both milk-based drinks, or are you talking purely about espresso and black coffee?
Well, look, I definitely acknowledge that like once you hit a whole heap of milk on top, you've got a lot of other ingredients and a lot of other flavor experience kind of going on. So yeah, maybe there's a balance here of we kind of change that.
Oh God, they're coming after you.
Uh-oh.
Oh God, they heard Ben's on the pod.
Maybe they're coming to a bad coffee.
Yeah. The coffee police. Okay, next in the news. Pete's giant coffee chain in America has dropped alternative milk surcharges. It used to be 80 cents to get an alternative milk with your coffee order, but now they're cutting it. This comes with a bit of pressure from PETA, from animal rights activists, saying that it's discrimination, that if you don't want dairy, you have to pay more. What do you think about this?
Look, I think those alternative milk options are great. I also know the headache of them as a barista or a cafe owner of how many alternative milk options do you have to have, rice milk, oat milk, soy milk, everything else that's under the sun. And so there's a challenge. Look, I think it's great that Pete's a large enough company that can kind of shoulder that cost and offer it at no difference. But for your regular cafe, it is more expensive to use. And it's just a case of, I think, economies of scale and accessibility. But it is more expensive than kind of regular cow milk. And so the idea that they're exactly the same price, I think it's...
Well, especially for smaller cafes. I feel like if you're a smaller cafe and you're paying more to buy the product, then you need to charge more for it. Like, that's the world that we live in. Sure, if there are people that want to make that stance that they're going to swallow that cost, or they're going to meet in the middle, maybe raise the price of dairy a little bit and lower the price of alternative. Maybe that's a way to approach it. But at the end of the day, I mean, hey, it could be an awesome stand or PR stunt for an actual alternative milk company to come out and go, we've found the market value of dairy is this, and our milk is always going to be at that market value of dairy price, to make sure that it's the same, to make sure that cafes can sell it at the same. Because I know these alternative milk companies are probably making a lot of money, and they probably, I don't know the ins and outs of how much it costs to produce. But also the shelf life. Surely that makes it more affordable, that you can have an alternative milk in your back cupboard for 6 months, whereas dairy is going off every few months.
All that fresh chain, a cold chain of storage and everything. Yeah, look, I think having those milks more available and people being able to choose them at lower cost is great. And maybe that'll start happening as there's more and more adoption of them.
Yeah, but I think it's tough for cafes to have to shoulder that load, but maybe it's the creative ways of trying to solve that. Or, hey, if you're an alternative milk company, take that stand, lower your prices to the same as dairy and just make that your thing.
Yeah. Yeah, there's an opportunity there for sure.
I have a question for both of you.
Yes.
Just pondering. I feel like on the pod we talk about, or like, you know, the more we go into coffee, the filter world, the black coffee world is expansive. Do you think we've hit a point with milk coffees where there's a bit of a pinnacle here? It's like it comes down to like the quality of the ingredients you're using, but you know, in like innovation in the milk world, like Melbourne is known for their flat whites, and it's like, does it get better than that? Like, is the ingredient just the coffee that we're switching out?
No, yes, I mean it is, but I feel like one of the hardest things with the milk-based coffees, there where we have this old school idea of the 350 in and out, you know, get it. I feel like there'd be amazing coffees that we could explore more mixed with milk that would blow your mind. But people have a bit more of an issue, I think, paying $20 for a latte as opposed to $20 for a beautiful espresso lot. It's like the wine drinker, like, oh, I could only drink this as espresso. There are some like amazing, winey, rich, textural espressos that I've had with milk that absolutely blow your mind. They're almost boozy and like fruit cake and like cover, like your whole tongue feels like it's covered like when you drink this thing. But people are less willing to pay $20, $30, $40 for a latte, which would be needed to be mixed with these coffees.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, not to drop the World Barista Championship thing again.
Oh, here we go.
But
yes.
I had
that can be the sound
the opportunity to taste some incredible milk coffees on the world competition stage because it is one of the required kind of drink categories. And yeah, some of those coffees are just mind-blowing. But at the same time, exactly what you're saying, some of these beautiful, delicate, amazing coffees, when you add milk to them, it is a challenge to taste all of the complexity out of there. So I think there's kind of both things, is that the format kind of has to be navigated a little bit differently. There's the consumer kind of mindset is like, what am I willing to pay for? And there's also the business thing for a cafe owner. Like a milk coffee generally services a particular audience who are really interested in a tasty kind of quick coffee, but maybe they don't want to explore.
But there's an idea of flavor profile in their head as well of what it should taste like. And sometimes when they taste those other things, it's like, this coffee's off.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, a flat white or a cappuccino or a latte using a house blend often has to tick the box of being the all-rounder kind of approachable. But yeah, there's some really cool stuff. And if anyone out there is kind of doing stuff in the cafe world that you know of that's, you know, using really cool either single origins or maybe different blends, but exploring a milk service of that in an interesting way. I think we'd love to hear about that. Let us know.
Totally. It just reminded me, I think we did like some coffee where we actually blended some alternative milks together.
Oh, we were doing one of the Mikhail's.
That's right.
He did like cashew, macadamia, and whatever it was. There was like 3 different alternative milks that for his signature drink or for his milk-based drink, he mixed those together to kind of get the perfect balance for his coffee. So that was an interesting way of elevating the milk in the different ways in which you could do it. Making the horchata milk is another interesting way of how you flipped it that we made, that I made the other week. But I think going back to the coffee, I think for anyone out there listening to this, some interesting ways that I've seen this approached by cafes, and it's about that experience thing, is if you were just to sell a latte that cost $20, people would be like, what is wrong with you? Great way to do this is this new coffee experience omakase style, where you book in and you go to get a coffee experience where they take you on a 4-5 step journey of different coffee things. One might start with like a coffee edible treat thing that you're having. Then it moves into a filter to get you going, then a black coffee, then a milk coffee. That's a way where you can have just like a set top line price that you know is going to make you money, but you can offer those different experiences that people might not be willing to pay for before. So you can change people's perception of what a milk-based coffee is through this full experience.
we're definitely going down a rabbit hole here away from our original pizzas changed pricing. But I love it. I love it because I totally agree. I think that, again, this is kind of a case of how do we engage with people in the, coffee drinkers. And it's a little bit of push, a little bit of pull, right? You want to meet them where they're at and then encourage them to stretch a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we kind of lose that in kind of in service to speed and efficiency, right? You're not like going, oh, you're my regular flat white drinker. Cool, here's your flat white. You're not saying, oh, we've got this amazing single origin natural process Ethiopian on today. And I had a little flat white of that this morning. And I tell you, it's amazing. Do you want to try it? It's full of fruit. It's like delicious. It's beautifully balanced. If we encourage that experimentation.
I had that exact experimentation right here where I had the Colombian coffee, filter coffee when I was at Code Black, a cafe here.
Yep.
And I was like, oh my God, that was delicious. Cherries, black forest cake, really great. Chocolate, yum. And they were like, you know what's even better? Having it in milk, like having it as a flat white.
And what was your response when they suggested that?
I'm going to come back next time and do that.
Okay, great.
I went back a week later and I did that. And it was delicious.
Okay, good.
And it was exactly what it was. And it's those ones that man, if you could have that as a flat white experience, and people would love it, but it is pricey. So it's the hard balance of where it is.
Awesome.
Look, I just want to talk with you. I just looked at the clock and I was like, I want to keep going, but we shouldn't. We'll keep it short.
I'm going to be here for you. It's all right. I'm coming back.
We've got plenty of episodes to go. Thank you again for joining us for Coffee Break. That was fantastic. We've got some exciting episodes coming in. Again, as we step into this new format and that, we want to hear from you. We want to hear guest suggestions, topics, whatever you want. Let us know as we build out this pod and do it together. You can hit us on our socials. It's just Coffee Pod.
Hello.
And then, no, it's socials, I was saying. It's just coffee. Is it pod or?
Podcast.
I mean, if you search It's Just Coffee, it'll come up.
Somewhere out there.
Podcast.
You can contact us.
And then the email is hello@itsjustcoffeepod.com. That one is 100% on.
Yeah.
You don't need to say anything now. People are in an email needs to be precise. Social media, search It's Just Coffee and podcast and we'll come up. We'll be there for you, I promise. And then, of course, listening to us on Spotify right now or Apple, just look down at your phone, click that subscribe button. It really helps us. We're trying to build this thing out. We've been growing. We want to grow it some more. We love all of you. Thank you for being great listeners. Ben, say that amazing thing that you always say to our listeners every episode.
Thank you. It's good. On the spot right now, crap.
Yep. And this is a segment I call Throwing Ben Under the Bus. See you next week.
It's just coffee. Great.